Sure, did you hear what happened last week? The Federal Communications Commission, the people who decide if your grandma's cable box works, basically threatened Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel, the guy who makes jokes about Matt Damon every night. An FCC commissioner literally went on a podcast and said, broadcasters need to take action on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. Bro, that's not subtle. That's like when your mom says, do the dishes or else. And you're like, or else what, mom? And she's like, or else I'll throw your PlayStation in the washing machine. That's what's happening here. Except instead of a PlayStation is the First Amendment. Here's the thing. We all think the First Amendment means you can see whatever you want and the government can't stop you. That's true if you're a person or Netflix or HBO or YouTube. But if you're a broadcaster like ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, you're basically playing with junior varsity First Amendment rights. Like everyone else gets varsity jackets, letterman patches, full scholarships, broadcasters, they're the kids running laps in gym class wearing jeans. Why? Because of a weird 1943 Supreme Court case, NBC versus United States. Back then, the court basically said, yeah, broadcasters are special. They don't get full free speech protections. They have to operate in the public interest. And what does public interest mean? Nobody knows. It's like your parents saying, be good. Good how? Good at math? Good at not getting arrested? Good at folding laundry? Public interest is so vague that the FCC can decide at any moment whether your broadcast station lives or dies. That's why when Jimmy Kimmel cracks a joke that politicians don't like, regulators can literally say, looks like ABC's license is in jeopardy. That's insane. Let's rewind. In the 1920s and 30s, when radios were blowing up, Congress freaked out. They were like, too many people are broadcasting. The airwaves are chaos. So what did they do? They nationalized the broadcast spectrum and gave the FCC power to handle licenses like Oprah giving away cars. You get a license, not you though, because you made fun of the president's hair. NBC fought this law. They argued, wait a second, Congress just gave the FCC unlimited power with this fuzzy public interest standard. That's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court's response? Shh, let daddy work. They sided with the FCC and suddenly broadcasters were at the mercy of regulators. This was also the era when the court was approving, let's just say, some bad decisions, like Japanese internment camps, like federal control of nearly all economic activity. Basically, the court was drunk on government power. So yeah, not the best time to be like, hey, can we get some rights? By the 1960s and 70s, the FCC was all up in broadcasters' business. Stations had to submit the entire programming schedule to the government. Politicians could file fairness complaints if they didn't like coverage. In 1970 alone, the FCC got 60,000 complaints. Imagine being a TV exec back then. You're like, tonight on CBS, the moon landing, and a 300-page report to the FCC about why we aired it. This was called the fairness doctrines. Basically, if you cover one side of an issue, you must cover the other side too. Sounds nice, right? Balanced coverage, everyone gets a voice. In reality, it meant politicians use it to bully stations. Like, oh, you criticize me? Well, now you have to give my opponent free airtime or lose your license. That's not fairness. That's like if every time you made fun of your little brother, your mom was like, okay, now you have to compliment him for 10 minutes straight. Fast forward to the 1980s, Ronald Reagan shows up and is like, the government shouldn't tell TV stations what to say. Let's chill. So the FCC relaxed. Republicans basically left broadcasters alone. Democrats pulled back too. And in 2011, they officially repealed the fairness doctrine. You'd think, great, broadcasters are free. But no, because the FCC never actually gave up its authority. They just stopped using it aggressively. It's like your teacher saying, technically, I can still fail you for chewing gum, but I won't unless you piss me off. And that's the sword hanging over every broadcaster's head. Here's proof. In 2004, some stations wanted to air a documentary critical of John Kerry. Politicians started threatening the licenses. Guess what happened? The station chickened out. They aired only 4 minutes of the film. Self-censorship, baby, that's the game. Even today, the FCC maintains this thing called the news distortion rule. It's not even the code of regulations, it's like a shadow policy. Basically, if a broadcaster is found to have deliberately slanted the news, they could lose their license. What does slanted mean? Nobody knows. Slanted like Fox News, slanted like MSNBC, slanted like your uncle after 3 tequilas. The vagueness is the point. It keeps broadcasters scared. So back to Jimmy Kimmel. When an FCC commissioner publicly says, deal with Kimmel or else, that's not just idle talk. That's a reminder of the loaded gun sitting on the table. Sure, maybe the FCC won't yank ABC's license, but the threat is enough to keep broadcasters walking on eggshells. And that's a real tragedy. We, the audience, lose out. Because instead of taking risks, airing bold investigations or pushing boundaries, networks play it safe. They stick to The Masked Singer and CSI Random City. Meanwhile, HBO, Netflix, YouTube, totally unregulated, are going wild. You can see beheadings, nudity, Elon Musk smoking weed with Joe Rogan, and no one blinks. But say the wrong thing on ABC and suddenly you're in front of the FCC like it's a parole hearing. Now here's a $1 million question. Could anyone sue and win? Probably not. Because of those old cases, NBC versus US and Broadline Broadcasting. Courts keep saying, yeah, broadcasters are different. The FCC can make content rules. Broadcasters don't sue anyway because who wants to pick a fight with the regulator? But here's the thing. Today's Supreme Court is way more skeptical of broad regulatory power. They've been rolling back agencies left and right. So maybe, just maybe, if a broadcaster pushed it, the court might finally say, yeah, broadcasters deserve full First Amendment rights. And honestly, it's about time. Because right now, the government still holds this weird Cold War-era power over TV stations, a power that chills free expression. That's not democracy. That's not freedom of speech. That's a leash. So next time you're watching Jimmy Kimmel roast a politician, remember that joke isn't just comedy. It's also an act of defiance against a system that could, at any moment, shut him up. And until the courts or Congress fixes, broadcasters will always be stuck in junior varsity free speech. Or as I like to call it, the kids' table at Thanksgiving. So here's the takeaway. If the First Amendment doesn't apply fully to broadcasters, then it doesn't really apply at all. Because free speech isn't free if you have to ask the government for permission first.